What is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story is honestly something that is actually generally terrifying, and I think all of us have had this thought before of what happens when you're in a school for 24 hours. Like, have you guys ever thought of even like sleeping in your school, or maybe even one time just thinking, oh, I wonder if I spend the night here, would my teacher still be here too? And honestly, this question ended up becoming a discovery, because what I ended up doing, well, was insane. But the story all starts off back when I was in high school. This was my grade 9 year. Literally, I was a freshman in high school. And I remember every day when I would go to high school in the first couple months, I would always be weirded out by how the teachers are always there after school. And in my mind, I always questioned, are they like there like all the time? Are they like doing work all the time? I have no idea. So I remember I decided to take it upon myself to be there for 24 hours. So I remember I ended up calling up my friends on Xbox, and basically when we all party chatted, I ended up telling them, yo guys, seriously, I think it would be awesome if we all were in the school for 24 hours. All my friends looked around and like looked at me saying, dude, that's the most dumbest idea ever. Why would you want to stay in school? And I remember I told them, have you guys never like thought of what happens like after school? Like what happens to the school and stuff? And then one of my friends was trying to be a smart bum and decided to say, oh, like they literally just clean the school and just get ready for us the next day. Why are you making it such a big deal? Dude, trust me, there's got to be more to that, is what I said afterwards. And I remember I ended up telling them, guys, I think it would be funny if we stayed in the school for 24 hours. All my friends said there was no way that was possible. And I remember I ended up looking at them saying, guys, trust me, there's got to be a way. But none of them wanted to fall through with it. I was devastated, don't get me wrong, because when you're with the boys, you always want to do something with them. But I guess not. I remember the next day when I was walking down the hallway thinking about, maybe staying in the school for 24 hours. I remember I was kind of just writing down on my notes in science class, just ideas that I could do throughout the school. Like, think about it. Your school's massive. From all the massive hallways, the cafeteria, even the theater. There's so much to do and so much to see. And without teacher supervision, it would be like a dream come true. But as I was jotting these ideas down of what I wanted to do, I remember there was a girl that came up behind me, and she was one of those weird girls in school with like glasses and stuff. And I remember she ended up putting her hand on my shoulder and saying, hey Bubba, what are you up to? Oh, nothing at all. As I cover up my piece of paper with my science textbook, she ends up looking at me and she ends up moving my textbook and pushing me away from my desk and saying, are you planning on staying in the school for 24 hours? Maybe, is what I said afterward. And then she looked at me with a smirk and said, I'm in. When are we doing this? What is what I said? I ended up being super weirded out because it was really out of the blue for this girl to want to do this, even though none of the boys would do this with me. And then she ended up saying, honestly, like I've always wanted to try it. Like, how bad can it be? At that point, I was sold. I ended up talking with her throughout lunch, basically telling her all the plans and stuff and basically how everything was going to go down. She ended up really liking my idea, but also there were some things that she wanted to do as well when, no one was around the school, and some things in her bucket list that she really didn't want to mention all of them, but apparently that since I was doing it, it would be easier to achieve. So we both agreed, and I remember we decided to make this take place on a Wednesday. Why on Wednesday and why not the weekend? Well, we were worried that if we did it on a weekend like Friday, then during the weekend the school would be locked up, and we don't want to stay in the school for 72 hours. We only want to be there for 24 hours. So basically at that point we decided to do it on a Wednesday because it's mid of the week, and also Wednesdays are when like everyone's kind of just tired and won't really pay attention because it's the middle of the week. Like, come on, Wednesday's like as bad as Monday. Basically from there, I remember on Tuesday night, me and this girl, we started communicating through phone calls, and we started to make sure we had everything packed up. We packed up everything we needed, and then the next day at school, we ended up coming with an extra duffel bag with our backpacks just because we were going to basically stay at the school for 24 hours. Now, here's the hard part. One thing we didn't realize is that right after school, there's still a lot of kids and teachers in the hallways and a lot of after school events that we have to try to avoid. So obviously from there, me and her decided to, stay in the cafeteria until school was ready for lockup. So basically me and her, we ended up staying in the cafeteria talking about life and hanging out with each other till I want to say almost 6 p.m. And around like 5:45-ish in the afternoon, I remember a teacher ended up walking up to us saying, hey, you guys got to get out of the school soon. We're locking up at 6, all right? Okay, is what we said. And this is when the plan initiated. I remember me and her, we instantly ran to the theater, and since they were making a set for, I guess it was like Footloose or something, we were hiding in the sets behind like the wooden shelves, and we ended up hiding in the dressing room because the theater never gets cleaned up for some reason. Out of everywhere in the school, the theater was like the last place the janitors would not want to clean because they're always making sets and the dressing room was always a mess. So I remember basically me and her, we decided to hide in there. We waited, and I want to say half an hour later, lights out. I remember the school ended up going dark. There was like no light, and we were freaking out, kind of scared. And I remember as we were freaking out, this girl ended up holding on to me and squeezing me a little. Kind of romantic, but at the same time, I wasn't really into her because she had like one of those like bug-eyed glasses. Basically, people called her bug eyes. I'm gonna be honest here. Anyways, I remember after that, me and her, we ended up walking throughout the school. We ended up basically leaving the door, and we saw that literally no one was there. It was the most weirdest thing ever. I guess the janitors work till 6 until they go home. I have no idea, but basically me and her, we saw that no one was in the school. Now, obviously, before anyone says anything and says, Baba, there's no way this happened. There's cameras in the school. You would be like in trouble. And yes, I do know this. So obviously me and her, we wore a hat and hoodie just to make sure we wouldn't be identified. So I remember me and her, we were running throughout the school, and basically we were kind of just hanging out, doing our own thing with all the stuff that we had in our duffel bag. We ended up eating snacks together. We even brought microwavable lunches just to make sure we ended up eating dinner. And I remember around like 9 p.m. and this was so scary because it was like literally when we thought no one would be at the school, someone goes to the front of the school. And me and this girl, we were literally hanging out at the front steps of like inside the school where it takes you to the upstairs. And when we heard someone coming through the front door, we were terrified. We're like, oh my goodness, someone's here. This is gonna be bad. So we ended up hiding behind a wall. And when we looked over, we saw that my principal was actually entering the school at 9 p.m. Like, what? And as he entered the school, right behind him was a young girl, or I should say a young lady. She was in her 20s. And for some reason, me and this girl thought it was her daughter until they started making out. And at that point, since me and my partner in crime, aka this girl, knew what her wife looked like, I guess, I don't know, my principal got maidens? I have no idea, but definitely was cheating on his wife. I'll tell you that much. So knowing this, we ended up taking a photo, and we basically started running throughout the school. We started hanging out, doing our own thing, and basically we ended up leaving and letting them be and kind of stayed away from the principal's office because obviously we were already really good at avoiding that anyway. I remember it was around like 1:30 at night. It was super late, and basically for some reason, me and her, we were looking around and just running throughout the school like dummies until she ended up having the idea. She ended up having the idea to basically go to a classroom where there was a ton of couches for seats because there was like a cool teacher in the school. And me and her, we ended up going there. When we sat down together, she ended up turning on the projector, and me and her started watching a movie. Now, the movie is a normal thing. That's totally fine, and I have no issue with watching a movie with the girl. But then she started getting close to me, and then she started making out with me. Now, I ended up kissing her with my eyes wide open because I'm not gonna lie, like I said earlier, I wasn't into her. But then she ended up taking off her glasses, and that's when I realized this girl had beautiful eyes. Like, holy cow, dude. She got rizzed with just those eyeballs. She had like these giant blue eyes, and they looked beautiful. At this point, she wasn't bug eyes. It was just her glasses that made her eyes look really big. So I remember me and her, we ended up doing the devil's tango in the cool teacher's classroom where he had couches for seats, and it was pretty awesome. I won't lie to you. Anyways, I remember after that, me and her, we ended up getting up and we ended up leaving the classroom. And as we left the classroom, we ended up realizing that there were cops outside. There were cops outside of our school at literally like 3:30 at night. We had no idea why. So I remember me and her, we looked at each other and said, gotta hide like now. So me and her, we ended up running, actually funny enough, all the way to the change rooms for the gym class. We thought it would be the safest place because what kind of cop would check the gym? Like, seriously? So we ended up hiding in there and just waiting. But as we were waiting in there, I remember out of nowhere, we just see a flashing light coming into the change room. And at that point, we knew it. We were definitely going to be caught. I remember a cop ended up walking in there with his flashlight saying, hey, anyone in here? And basically at this point, the girl looked at me and said, listen, I think we should just give up. Like, honestly, this is a really bad idea. I really didn't want to do it, but then she ended up popping out anyways, standing in front of the officer saying, yeah, I'm here. And the cop ended up saying, who else is with you? We know there's another person with you. And at that point, that's when I popped out. Obviously, someone told someone, or we got in trouble somehow, until we realized that the principal ended up checking the security tapes with the security cameras that night when he came with his maiden, and basically saw that there were 2 kids still running around the school and called the cops. At that point, we got in trouble. But in reality, we ended up just basically going home and basically getting escorted home in a police car. Kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Obviously, my parents were worried and stuff, and they were asking me, like, what's going on? Like, why'd you do this? And we got in really big trouble. And the next day when we ended up going to school, things got even worse. I remember when me and this girl ended up going to our first class together, we ended up hearing on the announcements, Baba, can you please come to the office? Thank you. We ended up going down to the office together. We knew that we were gonna probably be expelled or suspended or something, or even maybe not even graduate. But basically, when we went up to the principal, he ended up saying, okay, listen, you two have been here for the longest time. I don't know how you guys are not sick of school, but I'm gonna make sure you're sick of it. Both of you guys are expelled from the school. Me and the girl looked at each other, and we started like basically feeling really bad. And I'm not gonna lie to you, she started crying. But at this moment, I remembered something. I ended up going on my phone and I pulled up a photo that I took earlier that night. I showed the principal and said, okay, well, looks like I'm gonna have to email this to every teacher in the school. That's right, I blackmailed my principal. I remember he looked at me and said, that's not me, you got no proof. And I basically ended up zooming in where you could clearly see his face, and knowing that it's front of the school, it'd be blatantly obvious to anyone because his face was in it. At that that point, he ended up saying, all right, fine, I won't expel you. You delete that photo and we pretend nothing happened. Understood? We ended up agreeing, and let's just say that was basically it. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.